Everybody, and thanks for joining us online today to talk about generative engine optimization. My name is Wynn Harden. I'm the managing director at Tech B2B. We're a full service marketing and public relations agency that focuses on manufacturing technologies, manufacturing in general, and also energy markets. Today, you're not seeing everyone who's on my team here, but I've also got Mike O'Connell, Mike, smack me. Mike runs most of our Restream efforts when we're doing our Manufacturing Matter podcast. He's also in my IT department. And also in the background, we've got Kevin Pincel, who is our lead IT architect when it comes to GEO optimization. So right now we are streaming live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and Facebook. I would very much encourage you, if you have questions, to go ahead and submit your questions through those platforms. Mike will be in the background monitoring those questions and feeding them in to me here in the chat window. I'm going to do my very best. Don't be shy about waiting till the end. There hopefully will be some time for Q&A, but this presentation is technical and it can run close to our full 1 hour time slot here. But we'll try to hopefully have a little time for Q&A at the end. If we don't get to your questions during the show, very much would encourage you. We'll make sure if you give us contact information in the comments section, which please on your platforms, take the time. Let me go ahead and say, click and subscribe to our channels. But if you give us contact information, we'll get back to you, or you can go to techb2b.com and submit your question through there, and we'll be sure to get back with you ASAP. Finally, if you're in the manufacturing space, then you're very familiar with the Automate 2026 conference that'll be in Chicago starting, I believe, June 22nd. That Monday, we'll be there in full force with our team that day, doing a lot of that whole week. Doing a lot of GEO consultations. So if you want to set up a meeting to talk in person about what we're talking about today, we'd be happy to do so. All righty. So let's just dive right in. We've got a strategic guide to generative engine optimization. And we're going to start with part one, the new search paradigm, which is navigating AI-driven discovery landscape. I'm going to talk a lot about AI engines. And when I say that, I'm also going to be using the term answer engines. And answer engines basically apply to platforms that we're all familiar with: ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Anthropic's Claude, Perplexity, Microsoft's Copilot, and many others. The business impact of a well-executed GEO strategy is profound and measurable, and it's really coming to be important starting this year in 2026, when we expect 25% of all search traffic to be answered by answer engines. So, and that percentage is going to escalate very, very quickly. We've all done our standard Google searches and seen the Gemini answers right at the top, a conversational response. And you'll notice there's several paragraphs. And after each one of those paragraphs, there's often a hyperlink. And those hyperlinks are the gold that we're going for when we want AI visibility. Those are citations and mentions, and those are what we're going for when it comes to GEO optimization. So, because AI is based on large language models that are able to converse with us just as we converse, we can ask questions as we would ask our friends. That's why they're easier to use. People are gravitating towards those AI-driven answer engines. And so we need to be ready to make sure that we're seen as experts in our fields and that we're getting as many of those citations and mentions as possible. AI chatbots are becoming primary discovery tools for so many people in so many different industries, including in manufacturing. Now, as I mentioned, this presentation is built on a much larger white paper that's currently on our website. You can scan that QR code, go to the deep dive. There's the URL for that. Would encourage you to do so. Get a little bit more educated on this as we go forward. Ask questions as we all move forward in this area. Now, what is GEO? GEO stands for Generative Engine Optimization, and it prepares content to be discovered, trusted, and cited by AI systems, which is different than traditional search engine optimization, although GEO builds on that. This presentation presents a 4-pillar blueprint for mastering GEO. This framework is designed to position our clients as the definitive, authoritative source within their industries, ensuring their expertise is not only visible to the answer engine environment, but becomes the foundation for AI generative answers and recommendations, dimensions, and citations that we talked about. Now, the pillars of this strategy are, as I mentioned, are 4. There's verifiable authority as our first pillar that we need to establish. This is built on a very traditional acronym that we're all familiar with: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, EEAT. This is a method that Google, Bing, and all the rest have been using for years under their traditional algorithmic search methods. Basically, it's to establish what we know and if we can be trusted to share that information with their customers, with the answer engine's customers. Now, the second pillar is topical dominance, which is achieved through strategic development of comprehensive content hubs. We're going to talk a lot more about that. The third pillar is machine comprehension, which is enabled by meticulous content structuring of our content on our websites, schema, and a lot of other mechanisms going there. And then finally, the fourth pillar is the knowledge graph imperative, which is executed through a technical implementation of structured data. And this structured data, these efforts will be both on our site and off our site. If you've been doing websites for a good long time, then you know that your website rises and falls based on three primary criteria today, and that's content, coding, and backlinks. We've all done a pretty good job on, certainly on content. Coding, we do various levels of good job there because that can also include microschema and other elements. The backlink is something that we've traditionally overlooked, and backlinks are going to become super important as we try to about transition. So GEO is a holistic approach that includes AEO, answer engine optimization, and LLMO, or large language model optimization. These things come together to form what GEO is, and we'll go into more details here. Now, it's crucial to distinguish GEO from related yet narrower concepts to appreciate how comprehensive its scope is and how comprehensive our response needs to be. So traditional SEO focuses on ranking web pages for specific keywords, short terms, maybe slightly long. And we say that where we appear on that page is our SERP, our search engine return page, and we want clicks and to drive organic traffic to our website. Answer engine optimization is a subset of SEO focused on structuring content to appear in direct answer formats. Again, flashback to all of those Gemini responses that you've seen at the top of Google search returns that are very conversational in tone and have those citations and mentions that we seek now. Now, the large language model optimization, LLMO, concentrates on making content easily retrievable and extractable for particular LLMs. And it's interesting to note that each one of those platforms we talked about used different parts of the web or the world to train its large language model. And in that case, each one of those will have various strengths. They'll be better at maybe finding this type of information or that type of information. Were they based on social platforms? Were they based on Wikipedia and Reddit and other areas? As you dive deeper into the AI answer engine options out there, you may find that some of them are better at solving certain tasks than others, but that goes beyond the scope of this discussion. So GEO is the strategic umbrella that encompasses and integrates principles of all three of these elements. It acknowledges that AI answer engines operate as complex systems. For example, Google's AI overviews often retrieve information from web pages that rank highly in traditional SEO, but that also structure that information to provide direct answers, small snippets, which is what AEO is, and then it uses its large language model to synthesize all that information into a conversational response that anyone can understand. Okay, now let's get into how AI synthesizes content. LLMs like ChatGPT don't rely on memory alone, which is your traditional algorithm approach, right? Scan the web, maybe I get to your website every couple of months and I'm taking that information. AI synthesizes content using a retrieval augmented generation system, which is essentially a two-step process. The first step is real time, called retrieval. Now, this is when a user poses a query or prompt to its answer engine, and the system first searches an external knowledge base, such as the live web, company documentation, or a specific database, its own internal database as well as external, to find documents and data snippets that are relevant to the query that was presented to it. The second step is augmentation and generation. The retrieved information is then augmented, so put into the context of the original prompt, both providing the LLM with rich, specific context for our user and augmenting the search return to a more conversational, easy to understand response. This model uses combined information to generate a comprehensive, nuanced, accurate response, and often includes those citations and mentions that we want. That's ultimately our goal. The critical takeaway for any GEO strategy is that the quality of the final generated answer is entirely dependent on the quality of the information selected during that live retrieval stage. The AI system must first decide which documents and or companies, websites are trustworthy and are structured enough for it to be able to easily retrieve the information and then augment it for presentation to its customer. The selection process relies heavily on signals of authority, clarity, and relevance. If our content is ambiguous, is poorly structured, if it lacks signals of credibility and trustworthiness, which we're going to go into a lot more detail, and let's just, the foreshadowing there are the backlink components, it will be filtered out by the retrieval system before the LLM even begins to formulate an answer. So consequently, the battle for AI visibility is won or lost at that retrieval stage. Now, big part of how we prepare ourselves for that is the ultimate thing that we will generate from our GEO process, which is an llms.txt file that will be in the root folder of our domain. And it basically provides a quick roadmap for AI engines. These are the topics that we are experts in. Come inside to our website to find even more information. Now, let's move into topical dominance. How do we establish that? To be recognized as an authority by AI, a brand must demonstrate comprehensive knowledge of its core subjects. Sporadic blog posts on disconnected topics are insufficient. We're not just packing keywords into our websites as we have in the past. We weren't like just making fallacious content and blogs in the past, but we didn't always have a comprehensive strategy to make sure that all of our blogs fit together like jigsaw puzzles to be a very comprehensive topic or cluster of information for on say robotic work cell development. And maybe robotic work cell development and logistics might be a spoke off that primary content hub. The most effective strategy for geo-optimization is to develop a series of content hubs, which are also known as topic clusters. Now, those two topics can be interchangeable. Those two words and phrases can be interchangeable. This model organizes content creation around central themes, and for many of us in the B2B space, those will be based on our revenue centers, so our particular product categories and or our service categories. Those may be initially our primary content hubs, because ultimately we want to be cited, we want our products, we want to do business, we want to transact. So we want to build our hubs around those things that make us money. So what we're doing once we've identified the hubs is we're going to do a lot more looking at those individual pages that we're going to refer to as spokes. When you have the content hub at the center and you have these individual articles or pages feeding into it, then we have what is a topic cluster or a content hub. And that's going to be the ultimate goal of our GEO strategy. One of the nice things about the power of LLM and the efforts that we're going to be doing to kind of make sure we have a comprehensive jigsaw puzzle solution is that it makes it easier to match the information on our website to the user's intent using the LLM's ability to craft language, right? So everything we're doing on the background is to empower the AI to provide a conversational response and answer to someone surfing the web. And that's ultimately what we're going for. Now, our content hub strategy, I've already alluded to it, has two primary components. We have topic clusters and hubs right there. We have hubs and then we have spokes, and that makes our cluster, right? So the first part of any content hub or the cluster is the center component, and that's the long form pillar page. This is the centerpiece of the hub. It's long form, it's a comprehensive resource that provides a broad overview of the main topic at hand, such as a complete guide to robotic work cell development. And it acts as a central anchor for all related content. Cluster content, these are a series of more specific in-depth articles, each of which explores a distinct subtopic related to the pillar. Each of these pages links back to the central pillar page, creating a tightly neat structure, such as individual articles on PLC. If we were going to use our robotic work cell example, we might have some articles that are on the robotic controller component. We might have things on the robotic software component. We might have it for machine vision guided robotic component. These are the individual articles that take deeper dives and help us to create a cluster. When AI can verify that we have these clusters in place, it makes it much easier to quickly find individual parts or answers that it can then serve up, augment with its knowledge base, its LLM capability, and then offer that answer to the customer. We're going to talk a lot about this in the next several slides, but it's not uncommon. We've kind of followed a similar strategy to this in the past, right? We would have product or service pages, and we would have a lot of blog articles that would probably hopefully be tagged using those topics on those pages, and we would pull those knowledge based articles into relevant product and service pages. That's a unidirectional link where the link is going from the service page and it's connected back to the blog. One of the things that this is just a little tip that we're going to need to keep in mind is now we need to look at all of those knowledge-based articles, those technical documents, those how-tos, those FAQs, those case studies. And whenever it touches on one of our cluster topics, we need to hyperlink that text from the individual blog back to our hub or our pillar page, okay? Basically, what we're saying is we need bidirectional links. We haven't always done this in the past, but it's super critical now. And a single spoke page, or again, if we're doing, it's a case study on a robotics work cell in a cartoning application in a warehouse. This may touch on, there might be a discussion about the controller. There might be a discussion about the software that's involved. So we can, each one spoke page can connect to multiple hub pages, but this provides, these interlinks are a really key part of how AI is going to judge that we know what we're talking about. We're an authoritative voice. Let's go deeper into how we develop these content hubs, okay? So first, we're going to identify core topics, and we already mentioned that they probably are going to be built around our revenue centers for our companies, products and services. We're going to add brainstorming, market analysis, identify the high-level subject areas that are most critical to the business and target audience. Most of this work, if you have a marketing department or agency at your company, has already been done. You've already identified your ideal customer profiles, you know the vertical markets, you know how your products and everything fit into their solution needs. So the good news is that GEO builds a lot on what we've already done for SEO optimization, how we prepare our website to really be engaging for the user experience. The next step is we're going to conduct deep keyword and intent research. Again, many of us have already done this. We're going to use SEO and AI tools to map out the relevant subtopics, the long tail keywords. And now this is important, the specific questions that our users are asking related to the core topic. Again, the prompt or the query. That's what goes into the answer engine or the AI bot query when we all do it. We ask a full-length question. And we haven't done a lot of research in the past. How are people formulating those questions? Knowing those individual questions is going to be very important to succeed and to dominate against our competitors when it comes to GEO strategy. Now, we're going to talk about some tools that we've even made ourselves in-house and are available online that will help you identify those queries, those prompts, and then develop a roadmap strategy to continue to improve your position when it comes to AI-driven search. We are going to map the cluster in the interlinking strategy. We're going to visually plan the hierarchy of the pillar page and all supporting spoke pages. We're going to do a deliberate internal linking strategy. Remember those bidirectional links we were talking about, using descriptive anchor text. And this is crucial for guiding the AI crawlers through the hub and signaling the relationships between our spokes and our primary content. And when we establish that relationship and we can share that with the answer engine through our LMS TXT file, we get preferential treatment in citations and mentions, along with some other criteria that we're going to get into. Now, we mentioned the 4 pillars. Pillar 2, machine comprehension. While humans can often infer information from poorly formatted text, machines require clarity and structure. LLMs analyze the hierarchy and the formatting cues of a document to understand its content identity and what is the most important information. Optimizing on-page structure is therefore essential for machine comprehension as a foundational element of GEO. By using Content Hub with a pillar page that addresses the big question and then spokes that dive deep into the sub-elements and components of that big question, we create a content strategy that needs to be deployed throughout our website and through all the hub pages. We've all thought about how important the H1s, the H2s, the H3s, the meta tags, the alt text. We know that that's the kind of the minimum ante to get into the game. Many of you have taken it a step farther smartly and then deployed schema.org structured data environment, and that's going to become super critical as we go forward. So finally, we're going to break up long text into single topic paragraphs that use inverted pyramid style writing, lists and Q&A formats that help the AI engine understand what it needs to know about a specific topic, increasing the chances that our site will be a part of the RAG answer. So this is where it's going to take a little bit of us getting used to. Traditionally, our H2s might be like, let's stick with our example, right? How to build a robotic work cell, and top 5 considerations for a robotic work cell, and then we'll have robotic controllers in H2 section, and we'll have robotic software, and we'll have installation and mounting, and these would be all key elements, right? We're going to need to tweak our approach to some of those H2. What are the 3 most important things when choosing a robotic controller? Or 3 things not to forget. We can shorten that. So we're going to look at the H2s and H3s and H1s were always critical, but we're going to change a little bit the content that's on there. And we're going to think about going more and more to answering questions and telling people in conversational tones how to do very specific tasks. So a little bit more detail on the AI-friendly content formats. Okay, first, we all know we use one H1 per page. You'd be amazed how many times that doesn't happen, or the H1 gets embedded into a secondary H2 envelope. You think it's an H1, but the computer code doesn't realize an H1. We've seen this working with literally hundreds of clients over the years. So the coding and the minutia is very important. Each page needs to have its very clear H1, and it needs to have those H2s nested accordingly, preferably in some sort of snippet or Q&A format. This is a standard SEO practice, so we're not really breaking new ground here. We also need scannable and parsable formats. Let's get away from the large blocks of text. We've all, in our traditional website design elements, we've gone to the shorter little segments and where we're adding an image to each, and we move it around for more visual appeal and to make it more readable instead of really long pages. Now let's take it, in the past, we might have avoided bullets thinking that, well, how many times can I mention my keywords if I've got just bullet points, right? It's easier for me to hit those long terms and everything if I'm writing long prose. And that is true to a certain extent, although having your keyword appear 25 times on the same page isn't as important as having it in an H1, having it in a URL, having it in your primary lead paragraph. And so those practices and optimization of those practices are going to be important going forward. As I mentioned before, we're going to keep paragraphs short, and we're also going to use the traditional inverted pyramid style of writing. The beginning of whatever page, spoke or hub, needs to summarize all that will follow below it. That primary paragraph is most likely to get cited or pulled into an augmented generative search response that for someone who's searching for information on machine vision or on best process manufacturing valves or whatever the case may be, right? We want to use, and finally, we need to use conversational language. We want to use those quick question-based headings that we talked about. And okay, now let's get into, forgive me, went back on the wrong thing there. So now let's get, we talked about how we format the page that people can see, all right? But even more important than that is what people can't see. And this is when we're speaking directly to the answer engine itself on the page, the content that's on the page, okay? If content structure is the blueprint, then structured data, think schema.org, is the explicit machine readable language that translates that blueprint into a format AI can understand with perfect clarity. It's arguably the single most critical technical component of a successful GEO strategy. And the JSON LD format, which is widely used today, is considered one of the best in class. So I would encourage you to study that more if you're not already implementing that on your website. Schema markup transforms a website unstructured text into a knowledge graph, pillar 4, right? of interconnected entities that becomes a foundational data source for advanced AI systems. You'll remember, as I mentioned, that it was the fourth pillar of our strategy. So it's not just the content and the keywords anymore that are on our website. It's the relationships. It's that interlinking, that cross-linking, which is a strategy we've been implementing for a number of years, been very much focused on that when new clients come to us. But it's going to be super critical going forward. And more than that, it's not just going to be what's on the site. It's going to be linking back to technical associations, business organizations, groups, core and Reddit pages and Wikipedia, things that establish Forbes articles, things that talk about us and establish our verifiable authority, right? So when we think about links, microschema on the website, but those links off the site, which we're going to get into a lot more detail, are just as critical, if not more critical, and take a little bit more effort because it's not something we've all done traditionally every single day. Let's talk schema. When I say schema, what am I talking about? Well, schema is basically a series of non-rendered descriptors that are on page that you can think of as components that explain various things like who is your organization? What is your company? What's the entity? What's its official name? What's its logo? Its address, its contact information, its social profiles. All of that would be an organizational schema markup component. And that might be germane to our home, especially to our homepage and to our about pages. It would also be linked to if we're being cited by, spokes on our content hubs. What is a product and an article? So what is the product? What is primary features? What are specifications? Its pricing, its availability. All of this type of information would be in a schema.org markup related to a product component. When I say component, think of that section of the page that talks about the product. Next is the person. And the FAQ page. It establishes the identity and expertise of authors and subject matter experts, linking them to their credentials, their affiliation, and public works. And this directly supports the EEAT concept that we were talking about earlier. It's been, I can't even think of the literally hundreds of companies over the last 30 years that we've been here at Tech B2B Marketing that we've worked with. And they're, especially in the business to business space, and especially in the tech space, there's always been a reluctance to get our engineers publicly online or our key salespeople and engineer, not just the C-suite, but people who are really doing and making and developing solutions for the marketplace, right? We didn't do it because we were afraid that our competitors would just hear about them and then come poach them. But let's be real. Have you guys ever heard of this thing called LinkedIn, right? I mean, if we want to find people nowadays and we want to know who works where, you've got business prospecting databases out there that have billions of records and the Zoom infos, the Apollos, the seamless AIs, you've got LinkedIn. So I think that cat is out of the bag. Instead of let's leverage their expertise and their capability. And in some cases, those affiliations that company is paying for, are they an IEEE member? Are they an A3 member? Now we want bios on our websites for every one of these key folks it basically establishes us as an expert and helps to give us a competitive advantage in the marketplace. And we want to make sure that those bios link to those associations and vice versa. We want as much bidirectional link as possible. This is one of the first instances that I'm going to talk about where we talk about the importance of offsite links and how that will impact our GEO success rate in our internal domain. All right, so we mentioned about the how-to articles and FAQ articles in general. These are just super critical. They're tailor-made for augmented search responses and what we normally think of and what we normally see when we get a response from Claude or whatever AI engine we're using today. Okay, now the knowledge graph and the AI. This is a little bit different. AI uses graphs as a long-term memory. It's doing everything it can to avoid the historical error, right? It doesn't want to serve up information that was valid 3 months or 6 months ago. It wants to present the most accurate data for today. And so it's constantly searching the world for more information related to commonly asked questions. And it's using that information to build its knowledge graph, which is all part of its LLM and its structured data database in the back end. Our structured data feeds the graph. So while some analysis actually suggests that the microschema and that that those efforts, that RAG, remember the retrieval augmented generated response, which is what AI does when we answer the question, that's its process for going and developing the answer for us. Some people say that, well, it's not reading all the schema in real time when it's doing the first real time retrieval step before it goes into augmentation and generation. But that misses the point, right? More importantly, schema is the primary mechanism for feeding accurate real-time information to the persistent large-scale knowledge graphs like Google's. So when it's checking us out, when there isn't a question answered, but it's still checking us out, schema is what we use to establish our expertness, our trustworthiness, our authority. So while it may not be reading schema during the real-time retrieval phase, it did before it came there to begin with, if it was even going to consider including you as part of the answer. So schema is important all the time. It reduces hallucination too, right? By providing additional context, it's less likely that the AI will get confused or that it will give unnecessary weight in its response to someone who is maybe not the most trustworthy source and most authoritative source. It will be able to recognize our authority over that individual. Our information gets presented, and our citations and mention benefit as a result. Okay, now let's get into part 3. How do we build our AI optimized content ecosystem? Let's start with our implementation roadmap. Step 1 is we conduct an audit and a strategy. And then we're going to phase 2, technical readiness, where we establish, how good are our H2s? Is our microschema in place? Is our page full of bidirectional links? Then we're going to look at phase 3, which is our content hub creation. We're going to look at our revenue centers, and we're going to look at our services, and we're going to say these are the things we want to be known for. And then we are going to build authority by evaluating everything that's on our website that could be a spoke. There would be a supporting technical piece of content that would support those content hubs. And then we're also going to look at our offsite authority in that case, where we talk about making sure that anybody that we are a member of or affiliation or is considered a trusted source of information, that they're linked to us bidirectionally as much as possible. And then, of course, in phase 5, we're going to develop a mechanism for measuring our results. Where do we stand in terms of the number of mentions and citations? Where do we stand in those mentions and citations as it relates to those questions that we most want to be the answer for? And when we monitor and improve, and I'm going to talk a little bit here in the next phase, as mentioned very early on, so SEMrush and Ahref currently do not have a solution, although I'm sure they're just going like crazy to develop one that will help to monitor answer engine where competitive positioning when it comes to AI-driven search. Since there wasn't one out there, Tech B2B, led by Kevin Fincel, developed Joel. You can see the website here, QR code. I would very much encourage you to scan that and go check out the website. It's a commercially available solution today. And Joel AI basically provides you this information. It doesn't, you fill out, you start with the basic profile of what your company is, what you want to be known for. You put in your topic clusters. It'll help you develop those topic customers based on domain searches if you don't already have that capability. It will tell you where you rank and those questions that you think are so important. And I'll add a little point in here if you didn't know this, but when you ask a question of an AI engine, you ask one question, right? How do I change the cabin air filter on my car? And I type that in. The AI engine issues 50, 100, 200, 300 variants of that question during its live retrieval phase. And it asks all of those questions because they're all related, because its LLM knows how language can be varied, right? It understands that, well, I could say this question 50 different ways or include some aspects, sub aspects and components as part of that original question, because it's trying to get to search intent, right? Not everyone asks the question the best way. They may not ask the question that really gets to the heart of what they're looking for. We call this the AI fan structure. So the AI engine goes out there again. It asks hundreds of questions related to your question. It takes all of those answers from its existing knowledge graph as well as the live retrieval component, and it generates an AI response that's in a conversational tone. The Joel tool and the future tools that will come out like them, they will list the most recommended questions that the AI engines are using. And then you can use that to say, oh, I hadn't even thought about that particular question. That's really what I want to be in the top possible position for. Okay. So, and of course, it'll rank you. It'll tell you how many mentioned citations on all primary AI answer engines, and it'll show you where you rank. It'll give you a 0 to 100 in terms of your visibility in that space. And it's just an amazing tool for finding out where are the gaps in your content, in your geo strategy, on the existing content of your website, and how do I compare against my competitors. So check it out. It is very, very cool. Okay, now let's get into a little bit deeper on how we start to develop a roadmap forward. Okay, first we start with discovery and goals. We're going to do our comprehensive SEO and content audit. I'm not going to even get into this. You guys know what this is. Basically, what do we got? How do we rank from an SEO perspective? Then we're going to do very similar using a competitive geo analysis. You can use one of two ways. You've got 9 primary AI engines out there. You can come up with your list of 50 or 100 questions. You can that are relevant to your company. You can manually insert every one of those questions, and then you can copy the results, and you can see, at least in the primary response, who is being cited, what companies and websites are being linked on that. Or you can use Joel, and it'll tell you all that information right from the get-go. The next thing you need to look at is to evaluate your internal capabilities, right? So we know webmasters, right? Do we have someone in place that can do the microschema implementation across the whole website, for example? We know that we're probably going to need content, at least modified. We've got some long form pages that are really good technical pieces, but we need to put them into more bite size, and we need to add more headlines, H2s, H3s, that will tell the AI engine more about the individual sections of that paper. Do we have that capability in place? Do we have someone else who understands overall AI optimization? You want to look at your team. What can you do in-house? And then you'll know what you need to look for outside if you need to, until you bring those capabilities in-house. And then finally, we need to set measurable goals, right? We need our KPIs for everything at Tech B2B. We don't like to do anything that doesn't have a metric for success. Data quantified, not qualified, right? I want actual metrics to be able to tell me what's working and what's not working. So once we have those based on the audit, competitive analysis, and all these other bits, we set KPIs that are fairly reasonable. And for example, in case of Joel, you can actually put those goals in and it'll tell you how you are reaching it. Now, a goal might be that I want to increase my brand citations in AI overviews for industrial sensors. That could be our goal across all platforms. I want to improve that by 50% over the next 6 months. That is a measurable KPI. Or I want to grow AI referral traffic from Perplexity by 20% quarter over quarter. This is another goal that you can set and you can measure it. In that case, you're primarily going to be using your Google Search Console or your other analytics to be able to track that referral traffic. So finally, after we've done this, we are now ready to develop a geo strategy document that includes our baseline metrics, where we are today, our competitor analysis, how are they ranking, that we've defined KPIs for success in the short term, and then we can develop a detailed project plan for the subsequent phases. Let's get into that. Phase 2, technical readiness, with a strategy, a general strategy in place and capability and knowledge of what we can do internally. Our focus shifts to preparing for technical foundation of the website and beginning the process of content alignment to our hub, spoke strategy. All right. Ultimately, all reflected in our LLMS TXT file, which there are, by the way, 2 versions. You got a short version and you got a long version. If you want to have more information about that, I would encourage you to send a question to us or reach out to us afterwards and we can go into the detail there. Now, first thing we have to do is fix site errors and performance, right? This we would normally do as part of an SEO audit anyway. And if you haven't done it on a regular basis, we need to make sure that our houses and our foundation is in good order. Now we go and we add foundational schema using JSON preferably, if possible. We don't get any commissions off that. It's just one of the most recognized out there in the marketplace. And we would encourage you, if you're not leveraging a schema methodology right in our platform, go with the JSON environment. Then we're going to look at our content audit. We're going to perform a page-by-page audit of all existing content. We're going to categorize each piece. We're going to update and restructure for AI readiness as much as possible. Shorter little compart sections, H1s, H2s, H3s. We're going to consolidate when we have weak pages. Let's say we have 5 pieces on our robotic controller component. One looked at I/O on the robotic controller. One looked at the HMI. One looked at the importance of processing power. Maybe if they're all super small and very small components, we might just combine that into a really nice technical document that talks about the robotic controller. And we do our inverted pyramid style, and we summarize it all at the top. And then each one of our sections becomes some of those smaller, weaker pages. Okay. So that'll be part of our strategy. And finally, we get into, we want to restructure our high priority pages. Obviously, the pillar is the most critical page, right? If we had those blogs we were talking about where we had 15 of them all looking at little tiny bits of one particular product, if we combine them, we might have a much stronger page. And that also makes it easier for us to maintain that page going forward. And I'm going to talk about this going forward a little bit, but the date of publication of a particular page is going to become very important. How many of you right now, I'm just curious, you might have a publication date on a blog. Do you have it anywhere else on your website? Do you have publication dates for videos, webinars, seminars, and that thing? Because AI is going to pay attention to the last time it was updated. But we'll get more into that in a little bit. So the milestone here is that we want to have a technically sound and crawlable website with foundational schema markup in place. We want to have a prioritized content calendar outlining the creation of new content and the optimization of existing assets. Now, foreshadowing, the prioritized content calendar outlining the creation of new content. This is going to where you're doing the competitive analysis, much like you would have used Ahref and SEMrush in the past. In that case, it would have keyed off, how do we rank for these keywords? Because we can see the search volume there. How do our competitors rank in that? Okay, this competitor is beating us. Let's look at all the pages they have where they're covering this information. Then we search for topics. Now we create our own content that looks at it from our unique value proposition, right? That's something we've done in the past. Very similar approach. It's just that you're going to need different tools to be able to see how answer engines are viewing those products as opposed to your traditional Ahref and SEMrush. Okay, now let's get into making things better. Content creation or execution. This is a primary execution phase focused on building out the deep authoritative content that establishes topical dominance. Remember that was pillar 1. The actions here: create a pillar page based around our core hubs and our revenue centers, etc. We're going to identify all those supporting subpages, and those are our cluster content production. We're going to add our schema implementation, including, this is where we're going to look at FAQs and how-tos, other types of articles that are conversational in tone, and we know will be very attractive to an AI answer engine. So traditionally, we might not do these primer type pieces, especially if we're in a tech sector, right? Where, well, I don't need to explain somebody how a PLC works, because if they're in my industry, they already know how PLC works. This is true if the customer is using traditional search engines, but if they're using AI, we have to convince the AI agent that we know what we're talking about when it comes to PLCs. And we're going to do that by having pillar pages, FAQs, how-to documents, and things that really go into deep on all aspects of the PLC, not just the parts we sell. That's an important thing to think about. It's funny because over the years, I've told our clients, when we're developing websites or content, we really have 2 customers. You, Mr. Company, are thinking about the customers who buy your stuff. We are thinking about customers who buy your stuff and what they want to hear. But we have to get to them, we have to get through the gatekeeper of the online search engine. So the first thing I have to do is to convince the machine that I know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, the machine will not serve me up to my customer. This is just becoming more real, more important, and slightly different approaches to how we're going to tackle that, right? We don't just write content based on what our expert customers, users want to know. We definitely need that content, but we need more that puts it in context when we're trying to appeal to an answer engine. And then finally, of course, once we have all that information, we're going to deploy our llms.txt file. Now, I've mentioned already that those backlinks are super duper important going forward. They were always important, but they're going to become more important now. So the actions here are digital public relations and linkable asset creation. We need to develop unique, high-value content assets designed to naturally attract backlinks and citations from authoritative external sources. This can include original research reports, proprietary industry data, free tools, configurators, calculators that we're all using a lot, comprehensive white papers. Interesting side note. When we first started going down this path last year, we started with ourselves at Tech B2B. Half my pages, they were all linked. They were all linked in the website. None of them were buried. They were all visible. They were, you could go from top nav and you could get to any page. It's not like anything was an orphaned page. But only half of those pages were seen as connecting directly to our primary services. So half my spokes weren't connected to any of my hubs. Okay. And that's because, by the way, of the bidirectional link component. The other thing that we realized is that we needed to really look hard at the types of external backlinks that we were getting. For example, Claude in particular loves Reddit, Quora, and Wikipedia. That's where he learned a lot of his LLM model. There's some unique, there's reasons why it went there, not just because there are huge repositories of information. It's also because millions and billions of people go to these websites on a daily basis. So there's a thing about authority. Like if I want to learn about, ISA standards or something, I go to this organization and they're widely recognized, maybe not a huge membership or anything like that. That's still a great quality. They're a charitable organization, standards development group. The web knows that they're not here to just schlep things. They're here to make the world a better place. So that's important. Although the traffic may not be that huge in terms of compared to a Reddit or Quora or Wikipedia. So you really want to start thinking about, do I have profiles on these giant sites out there that at least define my company? And once you do the profile, you have to start engaging and discussing. So if you already have a social media part to your marketing agency, kudos to you, because that's going to be important. We've always said it's not about summarizing press releases and product releases and throwing them into LinkedIn or short product videos on Instagram. That's all great. It's about more than that. And so we need to make sure that we're getting our information, engaging our customers where they are, and that's going to drive crazy, but ultimately we need to invite our customers into our website to comment and talk to us about it, because that builds that authority and trust that AI wants to see. In addition to linking those bios to everything that's published, right? To say, hey, the person who wrote this was my lead engineer, it was my CTO, my CIO. You can, and here's all the associations and affiliations. That layered information about that person or that article, that's how AI says, oh, okay, I can trust this. I can take all of these cues and factors into account, and this company or this page is an expert page. I'm going to serve it up and give them the citation. We need, as I mentioned, we need to list on industry platforms any association that we're currently paying, affiliated with. Let's get that backlink, make sure our profiles are big out there, and go after the bigs at the same time. And then finally, this allows us, and this is more of a traditional marketing thing, when you're putting your profiles all over the place, if you control them yourself, then you can maintain consistent messaging, and that's important especially for a global operation. So the milestone here, we want a measurable increase in the number of referring domains from high authority sites and increase our positive brand citations and improved review volume and velocity on those key third-party platforms. Another little side note, when we were going down this path, we were looking at those commonly asked questions, and then we went into the query fan inside Joel, and it would list hundreds of individual questions that were related to one primary question. And you would be stunned at how many of those questions that AI is sending out to get answers on include corporate names, much like the whole how Kleenex took over what tissue used to be. People don't say, I'm going to go to the store and buy tissue. They say, I'm going to go buy Kleenex, even though it's a monopoly situation. I mean, it's, leans towards monopoly issues, and I think there was a court case back in the day. I don't know, but the point being is that it's going to be very easy for you to see who the dominant players are in any particular space when you're doing answer engine analytics, and that's exactly where you want to be. You want to be the Kleenex of Delta Robotics, right? Or 50 gig camera manufacturing for machine vision. You want to be part of the query, not just the mentions and the citations. And you do have the opportunity to do so if you follow this strategy. Okay, phase 5, monitor, improve. We cannot manage what we do not monitor. GEO is not a set and forget discipline. The AI landscape is dynamic, requiring continuous monitoring and adaptation. What are the actions we need to do here? We need to continuously monitor our KPIs in phase 1. This includes our AI referral traffic and our Google Analytics and other things. Look and see and measure how that's going. We need to have a tool for checking our citation frequency and our target queries. We need to monitor our keyword visibility and AI overviews. So it's not like this eclipses SEO. We're going to have to do both. And luckily, they leverage similar things. If you have a strong GEO strategy, you have a strong SEO strategy. Okay, there's no two ways about that. We need to review quarterly strategy review. This is, again, not a fire forget. This is a solution that requires attention, periodic attention, and we need to be ready to adapt to AI changes because, whether it's Opus's new release or ChatGPT's 5.3 or 5.5 right now, it's constantly changing. Its capabilities, its understanding, its knowledge graph, right? Those are constantly changing, and so we need to be monitoring this in real time if we're not going to get blindsided by some major change that's affecting our performance. Okay, I think we're getting close into, I'm going really long. So the successful GEO strategy, navigating the future. We measure GEO success by our AI citation frequencies, how much direct traffic from LLMs, again, using our Google Search Console or whatever analytics you're using. We're looking at reviews and backlinks. We need to actually quantify those now, and we need to care. And then our knowledge graph accuracy. So these 4 metrics are what you will primarily use to say how good are we doing in GEO right now. And I don't know that we're going to go into great detail on this, but I just really want to hammer home that review component, right? If you've got a product and service page, you might want to look at implementing a strategy where you set up maybe you've got a leads manager who's in-house, or you've got somebody in customer service who has a little bit of capacity. Follow up with these individuals 30 or 60 days after commissioning or after final sale. The happy ones, maybe you can redirect them back to the website and see if they can give you a query. Maybe you can see if you can leverage some sort of customer survey and then bring those comments into your website as authoritative tools, signs of expertise as part of your GEO strategy. So let's think outside of the box. We're evaluating a couple of different mechanisms on that. And of course, if you invite people to comment on your website, you're going to have to moderate it. It's okay for someone to have a bad opinion about a product. I think it's almost better when someone says they had a problem with a product. If other customers see you responding, owning it, giving them the solution, going forward, I think that's more important than saying that we have the perfect product. I mean, it's the same difference between do you believe in advertising more or a feature story that was written by an independent journalist talking about what something can do, right? We go with the independent voice. The customer is the ultimate independent voice, and the more we get involved, we're playing the numbers game. Real world success stories. I'm going to fly through this. Case study, this is deeper in the white paper. Industrial manufacturer. It has good SEO, lacked AI visibility. It enhanced the content for AI readiness and saw 2,300% over only a 90-day time. There was a SaaS company called Fugue, struggling to rank for competitive keywords. They pushed their page from 10th to first position in search results, greatly boosting visibility, as well as seeing their traffic massively increase from AI referral engines. 3, e-commerce brand Rocky Brands revamped their content using this strategy that we've talked about: Q&As, FAQs, how-tos, bite-sized content, making sure the H1, H2, H3s are all in place. And they achieved a 30% increase in search-driven revenue, AI search-driven revenue solely, and 74% year-over-year growth. Okay, so let's talk real quick and go a little bit deeper on this. How do we measure our success? Visibility and citations, the frequency of our citation and AI overviews. Get yourself a tool so that you can find out where your numbers are and track those numbers. Traffic and engagement. Look at your analytics and see how much traffic is coming from these referral engines. Authority and trust. Review volume and velocity. There's a lot of tools out there, Clutch, Google Business Profile, and things like that, that are going to be useful as external authoritative verifications that you are who you are and you're a real deal. The challenge is this is almost not even really going into, except that LLMs are evolving constantly. There is always the chance of AI hallucinations, but if we do our microschema and we're properly structured, the chances of us being part of a hallucination are basically nil. Resource allocation and commitment. Data privacy concerns, yes, there are out there, less so for North America, but those are traditional. It doesn't change by the case of AI. And if we're relating to, a privacy related to a social comment on a website page, they voluntarily did that, so you don't have any GDPR compliance issues. So, folks, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to make it with 4 whole minutes. I am shocked that people haven't been blowing up on assuming that Mike's still hiding back there in the closet bringing in questions. But if you do have any questions after the fact, please post them right on LinkedIn, post them on your favorite platform. It'll get to us. You can reach us at manufacturing-matters.com, which is our podcast that we do that focuses on manufacturing topics. Just went over 100,000 subscribers last weekend. So yay for that. These are all the different ways. And obviously, techb2b.com. That's where you can get us directly. And we're happy to do a consult at any time or run you through a demo of Joel. But in the meantime, good luck with those website optimization efforts. I know you guys are going to do great. And look forward to seeing you hopefully at Automate or some other time soon. So thanks for your time.